When there is life, it is followed by death. Some people succumb to death naturally or on their terms. Other people, however, are not always as lucky. Here are a select few of some of the most brutal deaths and horrific fates that some historic figures had to endure. Please be advised, if you are squeamish, this may not be the video for you, as its content can be upsetting or distressing for some viewers. Willem I of Orange was a key political figure in the Dutch revolt against the Spanish Habsburgs, which led to the independence of the Dutch. As a wealthy nobleman, Willem originally served the Habsburgs as a member of the court of Margaret of Parma. However, Willem grew discontented with the Spanish regime after the Spanish persecution of Dutch Protestants and how the centralization of power was being shifted from the local estates to the Spanish. This caused Willem to defect and join the Dutch uprising against his former masters. As the most influential and politically capable member of the rebels, he was at the front of many successes against the Spanish. Frustrated with the impact of Willem I, King Philip II of Spain placed a bounty of 25,000 crowns for the assassination of Willem I of Orange in 1580 for his role in the 80-Year War. Upon hearing the news of this enormous bounty, French Catholic Balthasar Gerards traveled to the Netherlands in hopes of claiming the prize. Balthasar saw Willem I as a traitor and thus had no qualms with killing Willem I. Gerard made an appointment with Willem at his home in Delft, where he had brought 2 wheel-lock pistols with him. Upon greeting Willem, Balthasar fatally fired his pistols at Willem from close range, hitting him in the chest, consequently causing his death, making him the first politician in history be killed by a firearm. Gerard failed to escape and was captured and imprisoned very quickly. On the first night of his imprisonment, Balthasar was tied to a pole and lashed with a whip, where his wounds were then smothered in honey, and a goat was brought in to lick the honey off his skin with its rough tongue. However, the goat refused to touch his body. At the end of the first day of imprisonment, Balthasar was left with his hands and feet tied together, making him curl up into a ball and make sleep impossible. Over the next few days before his execution, he was hung on a pole with his hands tied behind his back, and a weight of 150 kilograms was tied to each of his big toes for half an hour. Gerard was then forced to wear shoes that were covered in oil and made out of dog skin, where the shoes were 2 sizes shorter than his feet. He was then placed directly in front of a fire, where the heat radiating towards him and his feet caused the shoes to contract and crush his feet to mere stumps. The shoes were then removed, but took off all the half-broiled skin on what remained of his feet. He then had his armpits branded with a red-hot iron and forced to wear a shirt soaked in alcohol so it rubbed into and stung his wounds. To top it all off, burning bacon fat was regularly poured over him, and sharp nails were placed between his flesh and nails on his fingers and toes. After a long 4 days, his suffering continued as he was sentenced to receive one of the most brutal executions history has ever seen, even for medieval standards. The magistrates declared that Balthasar would be executed in the market square of Delft, where his right hand would be burnt off with a red-hot iron and his flesh would be torn from the bone, all over his body with pincers. Gerard was then disemboweled and quartered whilst still alive. Finally, his heart was torn from his body, and then he was beheaded, where his body parts were put on show around the city gates, completing one of the most brutal executions of all time. On the morning of September 30th, 1999, Japanese lab technician Hisashi Aoki was working at a nuclear fuel processing plant in Tokamura with 2 colleagues, purifying uranium oxide to make fuel rods for a reactor. Aoki found himself standing at a tank holding a funnel, whilst one of his co-workers poured a mixture of intermediate enriched uranium oxide into it from a bucket. However, they had no experience or training in handling uranium and accidentally poured too much of it into the tank, causing a big release of radiation from an uncontrolled nuclear chain reaction. Before they both left the room, they didn't know it yet, but had already consumed a fatal amount of radiation. When Aoki arrived at the hospital, nurses noted that he did not look like a victim of intense radiation exposure. His eyes were bloodshot and his face red and swollen, but believed they could yet save his life. However, within a day, his condition rapidly deteriorated. He required oxygen and his abdomen severely swelled. 6 days after the incident, a specialist observed images of his chromosomes in his bone marrow and saw only scattered black dots, which indicated that they were broken into pieces, thus meaning Aoki's body would not be able to generate any new cells. When medical tape was removed from his chest, his skin began to come off with it. The radiation had killed the chromosomes that stimulated skin regeneration, meaning that his epidermis, the outer layer of the skin, gradually vanished. This caused unimaginable pain and was worsened when he experienced further breathing problems, had a constant thirst, and was no longer able to eat 2 weeks after the incident. His condition continued to worsen until the 2-month mark, where his heart stopped. Controversially, the doctors were able to revive him. However, he eventually succumbed and his body gave up, where he died of multiple organ failure, ending his torture. The Brazen Bull, also known as the Bronze Bull, was a brutal torture and execution method originally designed in ancient Greece. According to Diodorus, the torture method was invented by Paralaus of Athens, who then proposed it to Phalaris of Acragas as a new means of execution. The bull is believed to have been made entirely out of bronze and was hollow on the inside with a door on the one side and enough space inside to fit a person inside. The person would be locked inside the bull, where their head would be aligned with the head of the bull and a fire was set underneath it. This would cause the bronze to heat up and would slowly roast the person inside. It has been said that the bull had the acoustic capability to convert the screams of the dying person into the bellows of a bull, where the steam would exit the bull's nostrils and give the illusion that the bull had come to life. Stories suggest that after Paralaus had presented his new device to Phalaris, he expected a handsome reward for his invention. However, Phalaris had other plans. The invention disgusted him, who then wanted to test the acoustics made by the bull and ordered Paralaus to get inside the bull. Once Paralaus had entered the bull, the door was locked behind him and the fire was set so that Phalaris could hear Paralaus's screams. Before he could die, Paralaus was removed from the bull but was not saved, as Phalaris ordered him to be thrown off the top of a high cliff. In a twist of cruel fates, though, it is said that Phalaris himself succumbed to the Brazen Bull when he was overthrown by Telemachus. These were 3 of some of the most horrific fates of people throughout history. If you made it to the end of this video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing for a part 2. Also, leave a comment of any horrific fates you'd like me to cover.